The best graphics cards are the beating heart of any gaming PC, and everything else comes second. Without a powerful GPU pushing pixels, even the fastest CPU won't manage much. While no one graphics card will be right for everyone, we'll provide options for every budget and mindset below. Whether you're after the fastest graphics card, the best value, or the best card at a given price, we've got you covered. I'll now start our list. 1. GeForce RTX 4090. For some, the best graphics card is the fastest card. Pricing be damned. NVIDIA's GeForce RTX 4090 caters to precisely this category of user. It's also the debut of NVIDIA's brand new Ada Lovelace architecture, and as such will represent the most potent card NVIDIA has to offer, at least until the inevitable RTX 4090 Ti shows up. If you were disappointed that the RTX 3090 Ti was only moderately faster than an RTX 3080 in most workloads, RTX 4090 will have something more to offer. Across our standard suite of gaming benchmarks, it was 55% faster than the 3090 Ti on average. Fire up a game with heavy ray tracing effects, and that lead grows to 78% against AMD currently fastest GPU, the RX 6950 XT. The 4090 is 65% faster in traditional rasterization games and nearly triple the performance in ray tracing games. Let's be clear about something. You really need a high refresh rate 4K monitor to get the most out of the RTX 4090. At 1440 its advantage over a 3090 Ti shrinks to 30% and only 16% at 1080. It's also just 10% faster than AMD 6950 XT at 1080 Ultra. Though it's still more than double the performance in demanding ray tracing games. It's not just gaming performance, either. In professional content creation workloads like Blender, Octane, and V-Ray, the RTX 4090 is about 80% faster than the RTX 3090 Ti. With Blender, it's 6 times faster than the RX 6950 XT. NVIDIA knows a thing or two about professional applications, and the only potential problem is that it locks improved performance in some apps to professional cards like the RTX 6048GB. We still need to see AMD response to Ada Lovelace, and we'll learn more on November 3 about what RDNA 3 will offer and how much it will cost. You might also want a CPU and power supply upgrade to get the most out of the 4090. And there's still the matter of finding RTX 4090 cards in stock. They sold out almost immediately at launch, and scalpers have pushed prices well above $2,000 for the time being. Hopefully prices come down quickly this round, and with the lack of GPU mining profits, that ought to be the case. 2. GeForce RTX 3080. NVIDIA's GeForce RTX 3080 with the now previous generation NVIDIA Ampere architecture continues to be a great alternative, though it's now lost some of its luster. The recommendation also applies to all RTX 3080 cards, including the RTX 3080 Ti and RTX 3080 12GB depending on current prices. Right now, the best deals we can find are $730 for the 10GB card, $740 for the 12GB model, or $800 for the 3080 Ti. If you like to max out all the graphics settings and play at 4K or 1440, this is a great choice. It's more than you'll generally need for 1080 gaming, unless you're running the latest ray tracing games, in which case DLSS support should also help performance. DLSS also works without ray tracing, and is currently available in over 200 games, so it's definitely a feature that's worth a bit extra. AMD offers the Universal FSR 2.0 as an alternative to DLSS, but it's not in nearly as many games. Intel's SS meanwhile sounds a lot like DLSS, only for Intel GPU, which limits its utility on non-ARC GPU. Even though SS can run, it doesn't look as nice and doesn't improve performance as much as DLSS or FSR2. The biggest problem with buying an RTX 3080 series card right now is the RTX 4080 and presumably a future RTX 4070, along with AMD RDNA 3 GPU. The RTX 4090 represents the ultimate in graphics performance, and it can more than double the RTX 3080 performance in price. The RTX 4080 also provides a healthy performance boost, but it sits at the old RTX 3080 Ti price. We'll need to see where the RTX 4070 models land in the coming months, which makes the prospect of spending anything north of $500 on a 30 series GPU rather unappealing. 3. Radeon RX 6800 XT. AMD Navi 21 GPU like the Radeon RX 6800 XT represent the best cards for Team Red. The RX 6800 XT provides a massive boost in performance and features relative to the previous generation RX 5700 XT, as well as adding ray tracing support thanks to the RDNA 2 architecture. At current prices, which have dropped quite a bit in the past few months. The RX Radeon 6900 XT and RX 6800 are also worth a look. The 6900 XT, for example, now costs 17% more for about 5% higher performance, while the RX 6800 drops performance by 7% and also costs 7% less. The Navi 21 GPU was affectionately dubbed Big Navi prior to launch by the enthusiast community, and we got exactly what we wanted. It's over twice the size of the previous generation Navi 10, with twice the shader cores and twice the RAM. Clock speeds are also boosted into the 2.1–2.4 GHz range, and AMD did all this without substantially increasing power requirements. The RX 6800 XT has a 300 WTBP, slightly lower than the RTX 3080's 320 WTBP. A big part of AMD performance comes thanks to the massive 128 MB Infinity Cache. It improves the effective bandwidth by 119%. According to AMD, few if any games need more than 16 GB, so the 6800 XT is in a great position in that area. What's not to like? The ray tracing performance is mediocre due to AMD lack of hardware BVH traversal. There's also no tensor cores or DLSS, though FSR 2.0 at least partially makes up for that. As with NVIDIA's top GPU, the biggest concern is the upcoming RDNA 3. If you don't already have one of AMD top GPU, waiting for the RX 7000 series to arrive makes more sense than plunking down $600 or more on a GPU from 2 years ago. For Radeon RX 6700 XT, start with the Navi 21 GPU and then cut down the various functional units to create a smaller die that can sell at lower prices, and you have AMD Navi 22 and the RX 6700 XT. The RX 6750 XT is basically the same GPU, with a slight boost to clock speeds, memory speeds, and power consumption about 5% faster overall, but with a 12% price hike. Give some thought to the RX 6710 GB as well, which offers less performance but also costs less and gives the other GPU some healthy value competition. The 6700 XT has the same number of GPU cores as the previous generation RX 5700 XT, but significantly higher clock speeds and more cache, give it about a 25% boost to performance. During testing, the RX 6700 XT had clock speeds in excess of 2.5 GHz while gaming, and that's at stock on the reference card. Factory overclock models can push that closer to 2.7 GHz, still without cooking the GPU. In our performance testing, the RX 6700 XT traded blows with the RTX 3070 and RTX 3060 Ti. It's a bit faster than the latter, and a bit slower than the former, but the going price of around $390 lands below both of those. Still, if we include pretty much any games with DLSS or ray tracing, the 6700 XT comes in well behind the 3060 Ti and almost looks like a 3060 competitor. This card has moved up in our overall rankings thanks to its excellent online prices. It's currently available at prices starting below $400, basically $100 off the MSRP. While we don't expect a mainstream RX 7000 replacement until early 2023, that's not guaranteed, and we need to see what RDNA 3 brings to the table next month. 5. GeForce RTX 3060. As we enter the lower end of the price and performance ladder with NVIDIA's desktop Ampere lineup, the cuts to processing power become more significant. The RTX 3060 uses NVIDIA's GA106 GPU, with a 192-bit memory interface and 12 GB VRAM. That's quite a bit better than the RTX 3050, but still a big step down from the GA104 chip used in RTX 3060 Ti, which has 36% more GPU cores. Overall performance is similar to the RTX 2070. So 2.5 years later, you can match the performance of a formerly $500 graphics card with a $330 alternative. And hey, right as we commence with the next generation RTX 40 series cards, the RTX 3060 is finally available for close to its MSRP. Amazon has this RTX 3060 for $341. The RTX 3060 still delivers a great overall value, factoring in ray tracing and DLSS performance. VRAM capacity isn't a problem, and there are a few instances where the 3060 starts to close the gap with the 3060 Ti. It never quite gets there, however, and the 3060 Ti might be a better choice if you can find one at a reasonable price. And if you don't want an AMD card and are still hoping for something extra, check out our wild card pick a couple slots down. The Intel Arc A770 16GB, discounting ray tracing and DLSS. In our testing, the RTX 3060 ends up being roughly the same performance as AMD RX 5700 XT. 18 months later, that's not going to set the world on fire, but then that's typical of mainstream parts. With DXR and DLSS, however, The 3060 can even trade blows with AMD RX 6800. We'll likely see an RTX 4060 replacement sometime in 2023. We test across the three most common gaming resolutions, 1080, 1440, and 4K, using medium and ultra settings. Where possible, we use reference cards for all of these tests, like NVIDIA's Founders Edition models and AMD reference designs. Most mid-range and lower GPU do not have reference models, however, and in some cases we only have factory overclock cards for testing. We do our best to select cards that are close to the reference specs in such cases.